Quick context about me, it's a little different. In real life, I'm not a researcher, I'm a software engineer and also have a popular science YouTube channel for which I built a small simulation to illustrate some kind of really basic origin of life event. Then it has been suggested to keep track of this work on archive, and here I am today to show you this simulation. The aim, what I wanted to achieve is starting with a particle system with matter conservation and really trying to see the spontaneous formation of structure able to reproduce, starting from this random distribution of component. And the key idea behind that is a well-known property of autopoiesis, so the ability to make to make oneself from within. We see here the structure, the system that we are interested in, the systems that are able to grow from within or repair themselves from within. You can see that as well as some kind of logical closure in which the bounded system determines the metabolic reaction within it that produces the molecular components that assemble into the bounded system, and all that being done by consuming inputs and producing outputs, mainly wastes. It's an interesting property because it's a really selective criterion for life. It's really hard to find something is that to call you legitimately call life that is not autopoietic, and really hard to find something which is autopoietic that you cannot legitimately call alive. And another interesting property of autopoiesis is that it can be seen as a precursor of reproduction, because when
Excuse
a
me,
system...
Thomas.
Sorry?
Excuse me, Thomas. There's some crackling in your sound.
Sorry?
Okay, we think it happened when you turned your pointer on. So, well, can you try to turn off your pointer and see if that would help?
Yeah, I removed my pointer. What was the issue? It was a sound issue.
It's good now. There was a problem with your audio, but now it seems to be fine.
Okay,
So
okay. The
try to
pointer,
go
maybe
ahead.
the pointer is making the, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was saying I was saying the autopoiesis can be seen as the precursor of reproduction, because when the system are simple enough, their autopoietic ability usually leads them to grow. When they are too large, they can usually break apart, and if the parts remain autopoietic, they will repair themselves and achieve that reproduction cycle. So the simulation I built is mainly the realization of this kind of emergence of reproduction. It's a particle system in which there is only 4 types of particles and chemical rules. So chemical rules here are really basic. It's just changing the type of the particles when they encounter, when they are close to one another. And there are also few physical rules, so dictating which type of particles push each other and which type of particles attracts each other and how. And all that is designed to allow a really minimalist autopoietic structure you see on the right with the schema, with the small autocatalytic network within it, with the only 2 reactions, for which the net effect is to consume what you can consider the food particle, green, and to produce the surfactant particle in yellow. It's the smallest autocatalytic network I considered interesting without loss of generality. And so I will show you now the simulation. If it starts to play. So you see it starts with a random distribution of components. You see there is some chemical activity changing the type of particle. I hope the simulation is not lagging too much on your side. And you see that here it starts to aggregate and it starts to form vesicles. And we reach a point at which you will have vesicles with interesting chemicals inside. And then there is a second part of the simulation in which you take one of those vesicles and you expose it to a source of green particles, so the food particles. And the autocatalytic activity keeps going inside. It reaches the interior, it produces more catalyst, it produces more surfactants. The surfactant aggregates to the boundary of this small vesicle, and it grows. And if we accelerate the simulation, you see it start to become unstable, it squirms a little, and it breaks apart. So it highlights what I was saying when I was talking about autopoietic reproduction cycles, and both halves remain autopoietic, and they start to repair themselves and achieve a full reproduction cycle. And it can go on. And you see here two successful reproduction cycle of these small vesicles. And it all started with a random distribution of component. So if I manage to, yeah, I think we will skip this one. And so, in a nutshell, what I wanted to achieve is some kind of integrative simulation in which a lot of different ideas are stitched together. First, as I said, I wanted matter conservation. I wanted to really start with particle systems to avoid the little cheat we have in cellular automata. The structure can, in fact, build something from nothing, and it's a dynamic which is really different in real life, where you need to take stuff from the environment to build yourself. I wanted to see also some chemical evolution because there is usually a trick to witness spontaneous formation of replicators, and the trick is to build replicators that are small enough just to appear at some point randomly by pure luck. And here in the simulation, you still have a notion of progression, a really basic one, prior to the first spontaneous formation of those vesicles, because the surfactant starts to aggregate. So it's really basic, but nevertheless, it's a form of chemical evolution. I wanted, of course, the emergence of reproduction, and I wanted the structures to be not a dead end in terms of Darwinian evolution. And as we will see a little later, it's perfectly open to Darwinian evolution. Limitation of the current simulation is that, as you have seen, it's split into two parts. There is a part in which you see the vesicle formation and a part in which you see the vesicle reproduction. It's splitted because if we let everything in a single simulation, the catalyst in the extracellular environment tend to consume the food particles, and so the vesicle starve. And there are easy way to get rid of this issue. One way would be to implement some kind of unhomogeneous property of the world, of the virtual world, to have at some location the right condition for vesicle formation, from which the vesicles could migrate to reach other location at which the conditions are the right one for replication. Or another way, or both in combination, would be to add more chemistry to ensure there is always some concentration of food particles around the vesicles. And so if we stitch the two subsimulations together, the question is, after, can we go further, and can we have evolution of those kind of stuff? And clearly, within reach is a really limited kind of evolution, but evolution nevertheless would concern the evolution of the autocatalytic network within those vesicles. Because there is inheritance of the content of vesicles, so inheritance of the autocatalytic network within them. The division is not perfect. As you have seen, some chemicals can leak out and some chemicals can leak in. And so when the conditions are the right one, you can have extension of autocatalytic network to form new catalytic networks that are either larger or smaller than the previous one. So you have inheritance and variation. And they could have different fitness in terms of yield to produce, by example, just a surfactant. There would be catalytic networks that are really quicker than others to produce the surfactant. And so we could have a limited form of Darwinian evolution in the same simulation with the selection of the best autocatalytic network in the third step of a simulation. An interesting dynamic also is that there is a very interesting non-Darwinian component of evolution here. By example, if you start on the bottom right of your screen, the non-Darwinian evolution square, if you start with a cluttered vesicle that contains a lot of other chemicals that are not part of the autocatalytic network, they will dilute themselves from one division to the next. And so they will disappear naturally. And so there is this dynamic in which the vesicle will tend to clean themselves, purify themselves. And it's not Darwinian. It's something that evolved like that. It's not Darwinian, but it's some kind of interesting dynamic. And so the idea would be to have in a single simulation. So clearly it's enriched because there is no conceptual particularly problem here to have to start with the random distribution, witness the spontaneous formation of vesicle and their ability to reproduce through their autocatalytic property, and some form of limited evolution through selection of the best autocatalytic networks. And in the future, far in the future, another way to improve this kind of simulation would be to descend to finer granularity. Instead of having one dot representing some kind of a whole molecule, having one dot representing some kind of atoms. So just dictate the rules to form molecules, and having the chemical rules between molecules more emergent, like in their physical behavior as well, to allow them to have some kind of function, as well as a template copyable catalyst, things like that. So it would be a timeline in the fashion of a metabolism first hypothesis, in which you start with those vesicles, form networks in which increasingly interesting catalysts emerge, some of which with probably template copy. And there is a perfect framework to do that, that won the virtual creature of this year, the Alien project. If you have not seen it, I suggest to see it. And so to conclude, it would lead to this kind of timeline of simulation in which you really have some kind of abiogenesis simulated from random distribution to some kind of open-ended evolution. If you have time, really quickly, I can go back to the slide I skipped.
I think we are running out of time, Thomas. So
yeah, okay. So it's a conclusion. So that's it. We can conclude with the timeline I showed.
Thank you very much.